I told you Oklahoma was the most important game on Tennessee's schedule next fall. Now let's rank those opponents 1 through 12 here on a Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Vols. I'm Eric Kane. I'm glad to have you guys along for the ride. Kicking off your weekend with us here today, starting that tailgate on your way to work, maybe on your way to work out, maybe commuting the carpool lane, whatever the case may be. Appreciate you guys for being here and making Locked On Vols a part of your morning. Big shout out to FanDuel, where you can make every moment more over at FanDuel Sportsbook by downloading that sportsbook, the free, easy-to-use app, or at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Got a show that I think you're going to like today. We're going to rank the opponents for Tennessee football schedule next fall. ESPN put out a story that I thought was interesting. A question for each of the top 25 football teams, according to ESPN. I'll tell you what their question is for Tennessee and some other questions for Tennessee opponents as well. And then we'll get into Grant Ramey talking Tennessee basketball in segment number 3. It's free to download, free to watch, view, subscribe. Anywhere you get your podcast, that is Locked On Vols, and I can't thank you enough for helping me spread the show. Okay, so let's look at Tennessee's opponents for the 2024 season. Of course, we know that Tennessee will kick off the 2024 campaign at home against UTC. That's August 31st. We know that it's going to have a Duke's Mayo Classic-themed neutral site contest. Get excited for that against NC State on September the 7th. Kent State will come to Neyland Stadium the following weekend on September 14th, and then Tennessee will travel to Oklahoma for the 4th game of the year on September 21st. You get a bye week, then you're back on the road at Arkansas, at home against Florida, at home against Alabama for the 3rd Saturday in October. Then you have an off week. Then you're hosting Kentucky, hosting Mississippi State, on the road to Georgia, back home for homecoming against UTEP, and then on the road to Vanderbilt to conclude the 2024 season. So I thought it'd be fun if we go ahead and rank these opponents. Well, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time at the top. We're going to go in reverse order from weakest to strongest. So at number 12, it's going to be UTC. Tennessee's played UTC a ton of times. Of course, it's in the family, in the university family of the Tennessee, of course, UT Chattanooga, 39-2 and 2 all-time against UTC in that series. They first played back in 1899. Tennessee has won its most recent ones, 45-10 in 2014, 45-0 in 2019. And the only time UTC's ever beaten Tennessee was back in 1905, where the Vols fell 5-0. You got to love old school football, right? That was when UTC was known as Grant Memorial University, in case you're wondering. Well, UTC is going to be the easiest game on the schedule, in my opinion. The second easiest game on the schedule is going to be Kent State. Kent State went 1-11 this past fall. The lone win came against Central Connecticut State in September. Heading into the offseason, Kent State was dead last in ESPN's Football Power Index rankings at number 133. Now, I haven't checked it lately, but entering the offseason at the conclusion of this past regular season, Kent State was dead last. So Kent State is going to be there at number 11. At number 10, it'll be a little homecoming bout for the Tennessee Volunteers. UTEP. UTEP has a new head coach. It took Austin Peay's former head coach, Scotty Walden, and it's going to try to revamp that program. Let's see here, UTEP. Tennessee's 3-0 against UTEP in a series. They first played back in 1986. Most recent games were shutouts for Tennessee, 24-0 in 2018, 56-0 in 1990. And again, it's a program trying to start over and took a head coach from the mid-state here at Austin Peay for the Govs and Scotty Walden. All right, so we got that out of the way. Well, the 10th toughest game, or the 9th toughest game on the schedule, is going to be at Vanderbilt. I still have no clue who Vanderbilt's quarterback is. If you know, you can let me know. I'll figure it out and whenever they start playing Tennessee next November, because the quarterback will change at Vanderbilt a couple times throughout the season, as it always does. Tennessee will conclude the regular season, as it always does, with its in-state foe Vanderbilt on November the 30th. on Thanksgiving weekend. Of course, Vanderbilt was 2-10 last year and lost all 3 of its scholarship quarterbacks that were on roster for this past season, and Tennessee just walloped Vanderbilt to conclude the regular season this past just a couple of months ago. I can't really remember the score. I've slept since then, but boy, Tennessee just, I'll tell you because it's going to bug me, Tennessee just boat raced them, as typically is what happens in this series. Tennessee won 48-24. All right, so Vanderbilt on the road, though it's going to be a road game. It'll be more like a home game for Tennessee. 8th toughest game on the schedule. I'm going to go Mississippi State. All right, new head coach Jeff Lebby. Of course, we know about Levy's system. Jeff Lebby came from the Heupel system. He doesn't run it exactly the same, but there's some similarities there. Going to be a lot of plays run, a lot of tempo. Blake Shapen, the former Baylor quarterback, came to Mississippi State via the transfer portal. Of course, Will Rogers has left and entered the transfer portal. Tennessee's 29-16-1 all-time against Mississippi State. First meeting was back in 1907. The Vols have won 10 of the last 12 matchups, including a 20-10 win at Neyland Stadium back in 2019. If you remember, Tennessee just ran the football the entire game that game. The Vols beat Mississippi State 24-14 in the SEC championship game all the way back in 1998 en route to a BCS national championship, if you remember that game. So Mississippi State starting over. Jeff Lebby, I think, is going to be a success there, even though it's kind of a hard place to win in Mississippi State. But I think that is going to be the 8th toughest game on the schedule. So at number 7 and 6, I can kind of flip-flop and go either way here. But at number 7, I'm going to go NC State, because I do value quarterback play. And though he's taken a step up from Coastal Carolina going to the ACC, I think Grayson McCall is a good quarterback, and NC State wasn't bad last year. NC State 9-4. I think they won their last 5 games. Tennessee's 2-1 all time against NC State. Tennessee lost 16-0 in Raleigh back in 1911, but won 13-0 in 1939, and then beat NC State 35-21 in the Georgia Dome most recently back in 2012. That was the Cordero Patterson game. I hate the fact that this is a neutral site game. Tennessee's played at Bank of America Stadium here recently against West Virginia a couple years ago, but whatever the case is, that's going to be what it is. I think NC State's roster's okay. I think it got much better with a quarterback in Grayson McCall. Number 6, I'll go Arkansas. Because it is a road game, and depending on how that Alabama game goes, I think it's really important because you have at Alabama, then you're off, and then you're back at Arkansas. Tennessee needs to win on the road, of course. No KJ Jefferson. I think Talon Green from Boise State is going to be the quarterback from Arkansas. Sam Pittman obviously got a new offensive coordinator, but Sam Pittman is coaching for his life this year, so they're going to have a whole lot to play for coming off a 4-8 season. But Arkansas still got some players, and it's going to be on the road. It's going to be a good environment. That's why I have it ranked above NC State at number 6. At number 5, let's go Kentucky. Tennessee, we know this, historically owns Kentucky, all that. It's going to be at home. Tennessee very much owns Kentucky at home. But Kentucky and Tennessee have played, with the exception of 2022, Tennessee and Kentucky have played some really close games here of late. Really close games. And probably got an upgrade at quarterback with Brock Vandagriff, though we haven't really seen Brock Vandagriff as a starter throughout his tenure. There's a lot of high upside there. And there wasn't a whole lot that you got from the quarterback position at Kentucky this past season, but they go to the transfer portal again. We know the collection of wide receivers that they have. They're going to have to replace a really, really good running back in Ray Davis on the ground, but Kentucky and Tennessee here lately, it's always been kind of a dogfight. I like Tennessee at home, but that to be a challenging game. That's at number 5. At number 4, I'll go Florida. Much like Tennessee owns Kentucky, we know Florida very much owns Tennessee in this series for the last 15, 16 years. It's unfortunate, but Tennessee did win the last time these two teams played at Neyland Stadium. 38-33, I believe, was the final score. Tennessee was winning like crazy, and then Florida made a comeback. Anthony Richardson had his Heisman-like game that game, but Tennessee was still able to win. You've got Graham Mertz, who's coming back to quarterback the Florida Gators. I still think Tennessee's roster is better. I still think Tennessee should not have lost that game on the road last year. Coming at home, Tennessee better win this game. But for some reason, despite what roster each team possesses that year, Tennessee and Florida typically does not go Tennessee's way, unfortunately. That's why I've got it so high at number 4. At number 3 is going to be Oklahoma in terms of ranking the opponents, because I think Georgia and Alabama are going to be better than Oklahoma, but we know the importance of the game of Oklahoma. Oklahoma won 10 games this past year. Jackson Arnold, that era starting to take over in Norman. Former 5-star quarterback. A lot of toys to play with. Again, it's super important. Number 1, in my opinion, as we spoke on yesterday's show, first true road test of the season for Tennessee. And I think it's a pretty good squad, so I'll put Oklahoma at number 3. At number 2, I'm going to go Alabama. Yes, Nick Saban's retired. Yes, Kellen DeBoer's come over. Seems like he's lost a bunch of his assistant coaches that he wants to get on staff. I recognize that. Yes, Caleb Downs has left for Ohio State. Some other players have gone to the draft. Some other players have gone to the transfer portal. I get all that. There's a lot of changes in Tuscaloosa. As I said on the other show, or yesterday or the day before, I don't think that if you look at every single position on the field, I'm not sure Alabama is better anywhere than they were in 2023. But Alabama's still got a good roster because Nick Saban built that roster. You know what I'm saying? So it's still going to be a challenging game. Don't get me wrong. It's still going to be a very challenging game. Third Saturday in October, last time the game was played in Neyland Stadium, we know what happened. Jalen Hyatt went off, and Tennessee won 52-49. Can Tennessee win again? We'll see, but I have Alabama as the second toughest opponent Tennessee will face next year. And then number 1 is Georgia. Carson Beck comes back. Georgia, of course, is missing a lot of players to the draft, as it always is, but good coaching staff, much like I said about Alabama and how Nick Saban built that roster. Kirby Smart, top recruiting class over top recruiting class over top recruiting class. You know the drill. Georgia is going to be tough, and you're back on the road this year at Sanford Stadium, so that is going to be a challenge with Carson Beck under center. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Tennessee's opponents ranked 1 through 12, or 12 down to 1. Okay, weakest to strongest. UTC, Kent State, UTEP, at Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, neutral side against NC State, at Arkansas, Kentucky, Florida, at Oklahoma, Alabama, and at Georgia. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts as we continue on by looking at some question marks for the top 25 teams in the country here on a Friday Locked On Vols. I do want to tell you about our friends, a new sponsor of the show, and I'm happy to have them aboard. It is Ibotta. Grocery bills are so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with free Ibotta app. The cash back every time you shop. Do you love making money, but also love spending money? Don't we all, right? You don't want to spend that money. You love making the money. You can make money while we spend it every time you use the Ibotta app. Ibotta is a free app. It gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items in the grocery store, to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire grocery trip, so you can buy that flight you've been eyeing, or you can, buy that game you've been that game you want to go see, or fancy dinner that you've been craving. I mean, you can do a lot with $256, and that's what the average Ibotta user saves per year. Join the over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands of retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Best Buy, and a whole lot more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta out by using the promo code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or your Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, start earning cash back, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, I-B-O-T-T-A, in the Google Play or App Store. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. More of Locked On Vols coming up next, right here on the show. All right, so I was perusing over on the ESPN app the other day, and I saw a story that kind of caught my eye, and I think it'll catch your eyes as well. The headline is the biggest spring questions for college football's top 25 teams. It's written by a couple of the guys and contributors, guys and gals over at ESPN.com. And if you scroll down to where they have Tennessee ranked at number 16, here's the question mark surrounding Tennessee this spring. Will Tennessee's new defensive backfield excel? It's a really good question because it's brand new. This is what the blurb here from ESPN says about that. Quote, The NCAA poking around Tennessee's program and its recruitment of quarterback Nico Iamaleava, and then Tennessee's fiery legal responses to that probe has dominated the offseason headlines. Yes, it has. Tennessee fans can't wait to see Iamaleava as QB1 for the Vols. He has tons of talent, but one of the things to watch this spring will be how the Tennessee retools its defensive backfield. The starters from 2023 are all gone, and there were also an exodus in the portal. But the Vols like some of their younger players in the secondary and also did their own in bringing in through the portal, bringing in Oregon State cornerback Jermod McCoy. We get our first chance this spring to see Tennessee's new look defensive backfield, and that's from Chris Lowe, of course, who has Tennessee ties and who writes about Tennessee and the SEC over at ESPN.com. I would agree with all that. I mean, the biggest question for Tennessee this year is Nico. Is Nico the real deal? Does Nico live up to the expectations? What does Nico do in terms of being QB1 on a consistent game-by-game basis? I mean, for sure, that's the biggest question mark. But, there's question marks at left guard. There's question marks in terms of who's going to be the second outside wide receiver, RB3, linebacker 2 besides Keenan Peele. I mean, there's questions all over the place, but there's question marks over the entire secondary. Wesley Walker, Jalen McCullough, your 2 starting safeties, gone. 1 transferred, 1 graduated. Tamari McDonald, your star player, your nickelback, gone. He transferred. Kamal Haddon, NFL draft. Gabe Judy Lawley, graduating NFL draft. Danico Slaughter, transferred. Those were your cornerbacks. And then, Brandon Turnage transferred. Warren Burrell transferred. Jack Luttrell transferred. There's one more. Deshaun Rucker transferred. All those guys transferred. I mean, I'm pretty sure Tennessee had like 9 players from the defensive backfield that ended up transferring. So it's quite the list. But the entire slew of starters back there, all 5, 6, 7 that were in their rotation, have entered the transfer portal or have graduated. So Tennessee's starting over. And I believe, like Chris Lowe mentions here at ESPN.com, that Jermod McCoy, coming over from Oregon State, where he was a freshman All-American, I think that he's going to be a guy that plays a major role for Tennessee at one of the cornerbacks. I think Ricky Gibson is going to be a starter at cornerback as well. Got his toes wet a little bit as a true freshman, and I think he's going to be out there. I think that Andre Turrentine, who finished the season out as the starting safety due to injuries to Wesley Walker, is going to be a safety. I think potentially Jacoby Thomas from MTSU, a lot of plays under his belt, but now stepping up to bigger competition at the SEC level. How does he fare? Potentially John Slaughter, who was a reserve last year, could step in and play. I think Jacoby Thomas, who played some, but again has been bit by the injury bug throughout his career, could be your starting star. And then you have some freshmen who I think could step up and contend for some spots. I mean, Boo Carter at the star position, I think, can play some. I think Caleb Beasley can play some at the cornerback position. Where's sophomores or redshirt freshman Jordan Matthews and Christian Conyer? What about some of those other cornerbacks that you brought in via the transfer portal? I don't know. We'll see. But I do think one of the biggest questions for Tennessee this spring certainly is the defensive backfield and certainly is, cornerback, star, and safety. What are some of these other questions that are asked of top 25 teams? I won't go into it in detail, but I do want to kind of peruse over this. For the number 1 team, the Georgia Bulldogs, the question is, will the Bulldogs be able to replace their departing defensive stars? I mean, that's the question every single year for Georgia because they go from Georgia to the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard, Kamari Lassiter. Those are some guys that, come to mind. Whereas it's been more front 7, it's more of the back-end secondary this year that Georgia loses. For Ohio State, will quarterback Will Howard, formerly of Kansas State, how will he adjust to the new offense as he replaces Cal McCord, who transferred out because he was afraid of a quarterback competition? Go to Oregon Ducks. Who will win the quarterback battle? Is it going to be Dylan Gabriel or is it going to be Dante Moore? Both of those guys went from UCLA and Oklahoma to Oregon, and they're going to be competing for the starting quarterback job. For Texas, what will the passing game look like? Well, you got Quinn Ewers, so I feel like you're going to be in good shape. Notre Dame, can Riley Leonard, formerly of Duke, shine in his first season with the Irish? We will see. Ole Miss, what all the teams' transfer additions, will all the teams' transfer portal additions be able to transition easily? We talked about all offseason. It's either going to be boom or bust. Lane Kiffin prides himself on being the portal king, and he got a lot of great pieces. How's that locker room going to be? How's that team chemistry going to be? I am intrigued to find out. That's the question for Ole Miss. For Missouri, will the Tigers be able to have another strong defensive season? We will see. Tyron Harper at linebacker is no longer going to be there. Chris Abrams-Drain at cornerback, no longer going to be there. Those two guys will be in the NFL draft. For Penn State at number 8, will the new offensive coordinator be able to revitalize the Nittany Lions offense? For Alabama, can Kellen DeBoer deal with the pressure of his new job? I mean, whoever was going to step in after Nick Saban, good luck, because that is, you talk about pressure. That's a great question there, for Alabama. Number 10 for Utah. Will the Utes thrive with a returning Cam Rising at quarterback? Well, he's been in college football for about 12 years, so we'll see. LSU. Will LSU be able to shore up its pass defense? Let's see. Yeah, that defense last year was totally off and did not complement a Heisman Trophy winner quarterback for LSU. For Oklahoma, how ready is Jackson Arnold? Ready or not, he's going to be the guy. Florida State. Can another elite transfer class help Florida State repeat as ACC champions? We will see. So on and so forth. Here's NC State at number 18. Will the Wolfpack be able to improve their run game? For Clemson, what's going on with the offense? It's Cade Klubnik, your quarterback. For Kentucky, can Brock Vandergriff adjust to the new system? We will see. For Miami, what can Cam Ward do for the offense? And for Texas A&M, what does everything look like under Mike Elko? Some of the questions over at ESPN.com for each of the top 25 teams in spring. And the question for Tennessee, will Tennessee's new defensive backfield excel? We will see. We won't know by the end of spring practice. We'll only know whenever they start playing football games in the fall coming up in a couple of months. But we'll see. I'm excited to see what it looks like. All right. Going to get a word in here from our friends over at FanDuel, then check in with Grant Ramey, VolQuest.com. That's coming up next as we continue on with Locked On Vols. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams. Quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and a whole lot more. NBA's happening right now. It's hitting the second half of the schedule after the All-Star break. You got college basketball happening right now as March inches closer. What a time. You got spring practice. Pitchers and catchers have already reported. Major League Baseball is about to start, and football just a couple of months away. No better time to have some fun, have a rooting interest in the game on the safe, secure, easy-to-use app. You can put some coin in your pocket over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel.com/LockedOn to shoot your shot today. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I want to talk a little Tennessee basketball here as we conclude a Friday Locked On Vols. Grant Ramey, my colleague over at VolQuest.com. Grant, earlier in the week, Tennessee battles back. It was an ugly first half, but then Dalton Knecht took over. Tennessee wins 72-67 on the road, avoids an upset at Missouri, and keeping another blemish off the resume, I guess is how a good way to phrase it.
Yeah, it was ugly when it was ugly. But they found a way to respond. I don't really think there's a ton of ugly wins in college basketball on the road. You can play ugly, but a road win is a road win. Rick Barnes talked after the game about them losing their poise in the first half and just trying to kind of create stuff one-on-one when that's not really what they want to do. They want to share the basketball. They want to run their stuff. So for them to find a way to answer in the second half, they've lost their poise at earlier points this season against Texas A&M, at Mississippi State. It felt like they didn't respond the way they did at Missouri. And Missouri's not a good basketball team, obviously. They're probably not as bad as their record says they are, but they're not good. But Tennessee found a way to do it. And Dalton Knecht, only like Dalton Knecht could do it. He goes over 8, and then he makes 6 shots in a 5-minute span. He misses 2 shots that turn into Jonas Adu putbacks. And then he has that overhead 2-hand pass to a wide-open Tobe Awaka under the rim to get it to an 11-point lead there in the second half. So for him to score 15 of 17 in the second half, go on that crazy spurt, man, like only he can. I think that's obviously the difference with this team and so many other Tennessee teams is you got a guy that can get you a bucket and can absolutely take over a basketball game.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just kind of thinking back to some years prior, the last couple of seasons, and a lot of the same faces, a lot of the same guys. But, And again, you see playing on the road, it wasn't easy. You said to work for it and grind it out. But I mean, without Dalton Connect, you're relying on Santiago Vescovi and Josiah Jordan James and some of the Zakai Ziegler, some of these guys to be the guy and to get you points. Tennessee, and that was a problem for the last couple of years. Tennessee just didn't have enough points. This year, you got a guy that can score on anybody, anytime, anywhere. And when he goes on that little spurt, that little 6-minute spurt where he scored 15 of his 17 points or whatever. It just truly shows you how dynamic of a player he is, but how good Tennessee can be and how Tennessee can really beat anybody in the country.
Yeah, I always go back to NCAA tournament last year in the Sweet 16 in the second half. Florida Atlantic was up 7, and it felt like they might as well have been up 27 because you didn't know who was going to go get you a bucket. And Olivier had been that guy in the second round against Duke. He was incredible. 27, whatever he hit, he had all the big shots, those big threes. Even Tyreek Key in the first round, I think he led them in scoring against Louisiana. Tyreek Key of all people. And then, but in the Sweet 16, when crunch time happened and everybody started getting a little bit nervous and you start thinking about, man, the clock's ticking, what are we going to do? You get down 7. If you don't have somebody to get the ball to and go get you a bucket, you're hurting. And at Missouri in the second half, Tennessee lets Missouri go 3 for 4 from the three-point line to start the second half after playing as poorly as Tennessee did in the first half, and they get out to a 7. I think 7 was the biggest lead in that game too. And for them to have somebody that they can go to and say, take over this basketball. Now, what you don't want is relying on Dalton every night to give you 35. Like, they need Dalton to be Dalton, but they also need a Jonas Adu to be Jonas Adu or a Zakai Ziegler to be Zakai Ziegler. They need that secondary and third options to play well. You don't have to have 5 guys in double figures every night. It's not going to be balanced like that all the time, like we have seen it sometimes this season, but you need those supplements to go with Dalton Connect because he can take the game over. You just don't want the entire 40 minutes on his back, I guess.
Well, let's talk about the 4th or the 5th option when he's on the court, and he was just magnificent for Tennessee the other night. Toby Awaka. Points and times he's looked really good. He's really aggressive on the defensive end. We know this. He had a really good summer. I remember you and I were talking about his couple of months with USA Basketball. You're not going to get that from Tobey every single game, but man, I mean, what a burst he had, and especially in the first half when he was the only one doing anything for Tennessee.
I think it's a glimpse into what he can be and what the future could be for him. The dude's got touch, and he knows how to score it in the post. I think he just gets in too much of a hurry, and he rushes himself when he gets the ball down there. And I think that's what they're trying to still teach him at this point in his career is to slow down, do your work early, as Rick Barnes says, with those post guys. And that's what they really needed at Missouri was for him to just clear out, get the ball down there, and find a way to score it. He's going to get your rebounds, offensive, defensive, both ends of the floor. He's going to be great on the glass. But for him to score 18 and for him to get big buckets when they needed big buckets, I mean, there was one point in the first half, I think they got down 5, and he scored 4 straight. Like, you have to have that little spurt to keep this thing from getting out of hand, because if that snowball starts rolling downhill on the road in college basketball, it don't matter if it's a team with a 12-game losing streak or the number 1 team in the country. Like, it's hard to reverse that momentum. So for him to help stabilize and then to score more in the second half and go out there with a career high 18 and 10 rebounds to a double-double, it's a glimpse of what he can be. And to see him do that at this point this season, I thought was very impressive because he's struggled at times, and it felt like maybe J.P. Estrella was gaining some ground on him in terms of the rotation. But he kind of established himself the other night. And if he can do that, man, that's huge for Tennessee.
Yeah, and also J.P. Estrella hadn't played in like a month because of the injury too. 2 more questions. When Tennessee took over that game in Missouri in the second half, Josiah Jordan James played 6 minutes. Tobey played, I don't have in front of me, probably close to 20 minutes. Do we see Tennessee, at least it's nice to know you have that option, but do we see Tennessee go with 2 big men with Tobey and Jonas out there more as the season progresses, because it obviously worked against Missouri?
I think it depends on matchups. I think teams that want to slow down Tennessee and play physical, like we've seen with South Carolina, Vanderbilt did it to them, Texas A&M did it to them, College Station. I think those kind of lineups, they'll probably go more Tobey and Jonas. I think the teams that want to play, Tennessee wants to play fast. If it had its preference, it's going to play fast, and it's going to have Joe at the 4 so they can play fast. I think that's going to happen against the Alabamas, maybe against the Auburns that want to play fast, Kentucky, March 9th in Knoxville in the season finale. So it just depends on the matchups. But when Rick did go Jonas Tobey, that's what changed the game in the second half, that 2 big lineup. It changed everything for Tennessee. And Tennessee has needed answers against that physicality and against those teams that want to slow them down. So if they could find something and develop that two big man look a little bit more, it's not like we haven't seen it before, but if it has success and can kind of help defend that, what teams are trying to do and have had success against Tennessee doing, I think it's a big development for Tennessee moving forward, especially at this point in the season.
All right, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, Tennessee's going to be looking for some revenge. It just got bullied down there in College Station a couple weeks ago. Know that Texas A&M's a really good rebounding team, but what needs to change this go-around? I know Tennessee will play better because it's at home, but you can't have that type of production and that type of results against the Aggies again.
No, and strangely enough, Texas A&M has not won a game since it beat Tennessee 2 weeks ago in College Station, whatever it was. They've lost 3 straight since then. What Tennessee has to do, you can't start as slow as you did at Texas A&M. You can't let Wade Taylor IV and Tyrese Radford hit 8 threes in the first 8 minutes of the game and just absolutely torch you. Tennessee in College Station got out-coached. They got outplayed. They got out-schemed. They got basically out everything. And Tennessee, now at this point in the season, 2 weeks left, 3 weeks left, you got to take care of home court because you've got Auburn coming to town. You've got A&M coming to town. You've got Kentucky. And you got to go to Alabama. And you got to go to South Carolina. And there's still a lot on the line. I mean, Tennessee's second place in the SEC. They're a game back of Alabama. They could have used some more help from Florida and Tuscaloosa the other night, but they didn't get it. And Alabama escapes that one in overtime. So there's, Tennessee kind of controls its own destiny because it already has a win over Alabama, and they go to Alabama here in a couple weeks. And it's going to be really hard to win down there. But you want that top 4 in the SEC standings for the SEC tournament. You want to stay on that number 2 seed line for the NCAA tournament. You better start by pounding A&M and taking care of business and looking like a pissed-off basketball team because they went to A&M, and that was probably 40 of their worst minutes of basketball all season in terms of just never really being in the game, not all that competitive, kind of got pushed around a little bit, humbled a little bit. So they should have a point to prove. It's going to be a capacity crowd sold out. All their home games left are sold out. So take care of home court, see what you can do on the road, and try to start playing your best version of whatever you're going to be heading into March.
Yeah, we'll see if a USA Today writer wants to say that Buzz Williams accidentally stepped on the court.
Accidentally
stepped on the court.
I'm going to run on the court, and I'm going to run on the court. And if I get arrested, somebody, it's an accident. I didn't mean to.
I didn't mean to. It's totally
Actually, I'll need you to write that it was an accident. Accidentally ran on the court.
If it's you, I got you. Okay, all right, Grant, appreciate it as always, man. Thanks so much.
All right, see you.
All right, that is Grant Ramey, my buddy, my colleague over at VolQuest.com. And you can follow his work over there on Twitter at Grant Ramey and, of course, at VolQuest.com. He'll have you covered throughout the Tennessee basketball game and plenty of post-game reaction and all that tomorrow night against Texas A&M. Appreciate you guys as always. Thanks so much for tuning in and checking us out here on Locked On Vols, ranking Tennessee's opponents in segment 1. Question marks for every top 25 team from ESPN.com. That was a whole lot of fun as they looked at Tennessee's backfield and, of course, talking hoops with Grant Ramey. Had fun today. We'll have fun over the weekend. We'll have fun on Monday when we come back right here on Locked On Vols.